Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. We have another episode of the EUCI Insights Live. We're still going to talk about the Savings and Investment Union. We'll talk about its role in the EU and finance, but we're going to talk about technology as well. And I'm very happy to have today Hein Dauven from Dusk Network. He is the CTO, and we are hosting the CTO for the first time. So that is really, really impressive. Thank you for joining our discussions.
Yeah, well, thank you for the invite. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. So for anyone that is listening to us for the first time, we are doing these interviews as European Crypto Initiative. We are an advocacy association. We are based in Brussels, and we do for the last 5 years talk to regulators in Brussels. We discuss different topics that are related to crypto and blockchain. And this time we have a series of talks that are related to the Savings and Investment Union, which is a new plan, a new strategy coming from the European Union, from the European Commission, mostly on a financial side. And what is specifically interesting for us and for this industry right now is really the tokenization of financial instruments and the whole technology that is helping this in a way financial instruments to be digitalized, but also when we're using blockchain. And this time we have a real expert, we have a CTO. Again, very excited to have you here. And you have been in a way working with Dusk right now for a few years. We are very interested to learn more about you. The first question we usually ask in this Insights is, tell us more about yourself. How did you come into this space? How did you become a CTO? What convinced you about Dusk? There's a lot of questions, but we want to hear more about your journey.
Oh, wow. This is, yeah, usually people start with like, I was in this year, I started playing with Bitcoin or whatever, right? So I'll probably do the same thing. I initially got in touch through it because I was involved in the Dutch libertarian movement in some form, right? And they were quite interested in this open platform where you can control your own money. And it was a hard currency, and that really attracted them. I think it was 18 back then. So we started, they started hyping that, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Back then, I think it was 2012 or something like that. The all the stuff you had, like the exchanges, the mining pools, whatever there was, they all worked like after a week. It was crazy. So that really disgruntled me, like, oh, I can own my own money and then it disappears. But it's always a question like, hey, should you even buy this stuff from sketchy exchanges? But yeah, you didn't really have much of a choice back in those days. So I didn't look at it for a while. And then I started studying economics for a year. And because I have an interest in economic history and technology, so it's a very interesting combination. After a year of economics, I decided to go into IT. And that's where I got into touch again with crypto. I did some very tiny programming work in like 2017. Then I did a paper on smart contract upgradability in early 2018, and I started working in crypto for a project that did mortgages on chain, and they had like this workaround to deal with them because those were like very difficult back then, regulatorily speaking, to tokenize. They did a form of tokenization back in the day that didn't really work out. So I had to quit working there. The project basically died. Then I did some little kicks on the side in crypto, like little projects I helped out here and there, until I landed a full-time job at Layer 2. And the most interesting thing I did at that Layer 2 was a CBDC project. So there I built and architected, along with our CTO back then, a structure to allow CBDC for the Norwegian Central Bank, which was a really interesting project. And also this was 2022, I think. And that's when I also started looking into Dusk and got really interested in the technology stack they were building. I may be lying about the dates. I think it was early, but it doesn't really matter. I think maybe it was 2020 even. So we started playing around with that sort of stuff, the CBDC, and I started looking into Dusk. And I joined the community and observed it for a while. And I found it extremely interesting. And especially when I was doing the CBDC project, I realized that the requirements they had and the privacy required for private payments between people, right? Like we have with banks where, yeah, they're sure they control the database, but I cannot see what you do in your bank account, right? And you cannot see what I do in my bank account. And that's something that in crypto currently does happen. And I realized, hey, this is not the right way to do it. I shouldn't be seeing what other people get, and others shouldn't be seeing what I get. So I started getting more interested in Dusk. At some point, I got into contact with our CEO, Emanuele, and we had such fantastic conversations. And after a while, he just asked me, like, hey, do you want to join us? And I felt like, these guys are way too smart for me. I'm not sure if I am capable enough to join them, but eventually I was like, okay, I have to do this. And since then, it's been a very happy marriage.
That's amazing. I mean, you know, everyone says you have to have smarter people in a room. If otherwise you're not in the right room. So that played amazing with you. But I'm sure you're also very modest. So
I'm not going to comment on that.
There's a bunch of smart people at Dusk, and again, we're very happy to have you here. But looking at the journey, it was a pretty long one. You had so many interesting in a way experiences, looking into also CBDCs, very, very interesting, and as you know, very still relevant for Europe. So what attracted you to Dusk? Can you tell us a little bit more about Dusk? What do you do right now? How the whole journey worked? You know, what should people know that are listening to us? How do they learn more about Dusk?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that were really interesting for me for Dusk. It was, of course, the privacy aspect, as I mentioned before, and in payments, right? Seeing like this is a requirement, but also if you know how the process of issuances happens and settlement of securities, it's crazy. If you map this out on a flowchart and you look at the many different parties involved to do something as simple as updating, in essence, a balance sheet from between a transfer, right? The complexity that comes in there because of the legacy that we build over time, it's quite scary. Also the error margin that happened there, and obviously blockchain already does this double bookkeeping natively, right? And there is also account systems in place in there. So a lot of the things that you need is already in blockchain technology, and then the enhancement that Dusk added on top of it by trying to have compliance first as a requirement, and then adding the privacy aspect as well. That combination to me was very powerful and really attracted me to check it out. Like I mentioned as well, right? I had some conversations with Emanuele. Obviously, we went into this as well, and that is the reason that I joined. And when I joined Dusk, I did some side projects like our incentivized testnet, ITN. I managed those parts, and that was a lot of fun to do. Did some programming things on the side, odd jobs, and then I slowly rose up doing operations, and then software. Well, first development operations, so helping with the operations of the development team, because we have quite a big team, about 20 developers in our team. So I helped there. Then I did general operations, and then we had sort of a restructuring of the management team, and I became the CTO, and our Ryan, who did business development, became the COO, and that has been like for half a year now, and it's been an amazing way to work with us three. It's really good, and yeah, so now I'm responsible for about a 20 people team that just does development work, and the development work ranges from building a centralized exchange platform for one of our partners, NPEX. Which is going to go crypto native, with whom we are also doing the DLT TSS application, so that they can do basically blockchain issuance and all that sort of good stuff, and the settlement without a CSD involved. We have our own infrastructure that we've built, that we've recently expanded to be EVM compatible, as well as we noticed that a lot of tokenization products and partners required this. So we changed our architecture a little bit to encompass and facilitate them as well, so that the hurdle to do things becomes less, and we open up a bigger space for interoperability, which is also interesting with the savings and investment union in mind, right? Having this interoperable infrastructure. So we obviously try to position ourselves in that way. And there are some products that we're building around the DLT TSS, the native issuance of assets, but also tokenization of assets with multiple different brokers that have some really interesting products available that can be yield bearing and on chain. And so one of my tasks is to spec those things out and architect how all the pieces look like. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear about that, because it seems that you have already had experience building some technology that is also linked to maybe potential regulation or current regulation when we think about CBDCs. But even right now, for anyone that is listening, the Savings and Investment Union that we mentioned specifically here, there's a whole discussion about the DLT pilot regime, and basically a regime where there was a kind of a sandbox, similar to a sandbox, a pilot regime where anyone can look into how to tokenize financial instruments. Of course, there were some limitations on the side of the type of the asset or the amount of this assets tokenized and traded. But at the same time, there were less compliance than usual when it comes to financial instruments issuance and then trading as well. So you're very much aware of this. You're probably hearing these rules and limitations or even opportunities every day. So how does it look like when you have to embed something that has very strict regulation, and then you need to build for that? Like, you're basically building a product that is helping everyone tokenize their assets, but at the same time, there are rules that you have to follow. Are there any trade-offs that you have to think about? For example, this thing that you mentioned already, that it's EVM compatible. It's something that you were able to adjust, looking into what the market trends are as well.
Yeah, so this is quite a thing, right? Because our partner that you recently spoke to, 21X, they probably had the most toughest of all, because they started basically from scratch, right? We have the advantage that we were working with NPEX, the SME exchange in the Netherlands. They are MTF licensed, so they already had a lot of procedures in place and investment or investor books where you can basically see like what the rules are for the processes. And what we've been doing is also for the DLT TSS license, we've been looking together with them like, hey, what is it that you currently do operations wise, and how does that map to a technological solution, and what are the differences and exemptions you then need to figure out. And it's quite a fun process, to be honest, to figure these things out. And yeah, it's difficult at times, because you need to engineer around the limitations of either the law or of the technology. But often there are more things that map on each other than you might think. And sometimes it's just a matter of how you say it to see whether it matters or not, right? And I think one of the more interesting problems that we are running into now is the question around AMMs, so trading platforms like Uniswap, and you have trading pools and order books. Order books are well understood products in TradFi, right? While, for example, dark pools are also a well understood thing. But then AMMs are a bit difficult, because who has the ownership of the asset when you have a position in a pool? And those are like things that then need to be figured out, because if you go one way, the reporting looks different than in the other pathway that you take, and this reporting is very important. And because it's public, you have some ease in the reporting itself. But then the question becomes: is the asset issuer or the one that makes it publicly available, right? The party that puts the asset on chain. Who is the owner? Who's the responsible owner of this asset? If they cannot claw back, for example, the trading pool value that's in there. And then you get in all to these questions that you then need to figure out, and it becomes a bit of a rabbit hole. But those are quite interesting, because there's always, most of the time, an engineering solution for it.
And you did mention 21X, so we had 21X here as well. They were guests at our podcast, at our Insights, and we also heard you were partnering with them. So how does this partnership look like? It's also pretty interesting. I think everyone that is thinking about the financial instruments and also the whole market that is the European one, two European companies partnering and working together. You have the same legal framework, you are almost in the same jurisdictions, and partnering and I think working together, creating more jobs is really something that also the whole Savings and Investments Union is about. We're looking into how to create frameworks that would really accelerate this kind of a tokenization of financial instruments.
Yeah, what they've done is a massive feat, right? Getting that license, especially from the position where they're coming from, like it's massive. And we get along really well with 21X. We have occasional things. We even organized a dinner recently with them, which was quite fun and interesting, where a lot of institutional parties came together and we had a discussion about where tokenization is heading. There are two vectors that we're exploring with them. So one is the integration of their exchange with our infrastructure, right? So currently they support Polygon, but then they would also support Dusk EVM, for example. And the other venue that we're looking at is that we tokenize assets that they have on their platform, right? So we offer the products that they have through our own network so that we get liquidity on our system, and all the people that are within our ecosystem can buy the assets that also live in their platform.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I actually just came from the Ethereum Community Conference in Cannes, and it was very interesting because listening to different talks, specifically for some talks that were talking about real-world assets, tokenization, maybe even talking about different technical aspects of the whole process, was interesting to see that tokenization is really a big part of our industry right now. It's becoming more and more important in Europe and globally as well. Listening to the Chainlink CEO as well was very, very nice because he was presenting in a way all the hurdles that can happen in a process, but at the same time, the massive liquidity and the use cases that we can build by connecting with institutional players. And of course, that's pretty new, but still something that was in a plan, I think, from really, really long time, especially for some players that have seen that very early. So besides 21X, you're partnering with different partners like Chainlink as well, Quantos, and others. It's really, it needs a whole new tech stack and a whole new requirements to be able to build this. How important are those partnerships, and how important is for everyone to be aware of the technical needs that are also aligned with the, in a way, I would say regulatory requirements, that we have everything in place for this connection of, let's say, the crypto world together with the institutional world?
Well, these are huge, and actually some of the more interesting ones are quite difficult to announce, right, in terms of partnerships, because, for example, if you look at the ones that we currently have announced, for example, 21X is really important in getting assets onto a platform, giving people options to buy assets. NPEX is, of course, a key one to get to that holy grail with the DLT TSS, where you can have the settlement and clearing completely on-chain, right? So that partnership is really key, but we also have some pathways for tokenization with them. You have, of course, Chainlink that helps a lot with the interoperability of assets across multiple networks, which is nice for availability and getting rid a bit of that liquidity fragmentation that currently happens by everyone having their own network silo, where moving assets around is quite difficult. And then you have a party like Quantos, which is key in having a settlement currency, right? So for the DLT TSS, usually in securities, you settle in euros. And because Quantos has well, I can't say it has the MiCA license, but it's MiCA compliant, let's say. They are capable of of settling in a currency that is the same as the euros that I have on my bank account, right? Legally speaking, they're exactly the same. So having that programmable money, this actual programmable euros, is massively important for making this happen. This tokenization, or this native issuance, as I call it. That's a commonly used term for those that tokens that actually are born, let's say, on chain, that have the full life cycle on chain. You need something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, it's a whole, like you're saying, building block. It's a whole, like, different puzzles coming together and really creating something that is a product that can be used. Besides that, we were also talking a little bit about maybe, KYC, privacy there, thinking about zero knowledge. How do you see that? How are you integrating this in your products as well?
Yeah, well, you might be surprised to hear that as a CTO, to me, it's all an implementation detail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a higher goal as Dusk when it comes to, for example, the use of zero knowledge proofs and privacy. In the end, it's an ends to the means that is this native issuance, like through the DLT TSS, to have the whole life cycle of securities on a blockchain. And to us, this is key technology to use. Why? KYC is needed. It's just like, it's regulatorily speaking, it's needed, right? Like there's no question about it. And doing this is quite straightforward because we've done this before with a bond issuance. We as Dusk have done a bond raise last year, I think in the ballpark figure of 5 million or 3.5 million or something like that. And that was a really successful thing for us. It was like a test run, and we proved that it worked, and we did it in a compliant way with an on-chain allow list and that sort of stuff. So it's quite simple to do this. We have experience with that. When it comes to privacy is something you need, because, for example, if you were going to do a trade and I'm a malicious trader, I can inspect your trade happening, and I can see, oh, there's an arbitrage opportunity if I now buy the asset and sandwich you, right? Like I buy before you pay more than you were planning to, and then I sell, and then I take the profit. And this is something you can very easily do with bots on Ethereum at the moment, for example, and all of the EVM chains. And at the moment, it's not that big of a problem, but I suspect that legally speaking, this will become a big problem the bigger this industry gets. And that's something that we've been designing against for a very long time, like since the beginning. And that is why we say privacy is important, right? Because first of all, I can look into your books. If you are a business, let's say you are like Warren Buffett's outfit, and we can see that with your wallet, you are buying the assets, we can front run you, right? Like we can see, oh, wait, Berkshire Hathaway is currently buying a lot of this stock. Let's buy this as well, right? And then when the news comes out, then other people will also buy, so I get an extra benefit. And that's market manipulation under current regulation, and you don't want that. So we've designed with zero knowledge proofs ways to hide the sender receiver of assets as well as what's being transferred. And this is a problem because this is full anonymity. But it's not. In our case, the implementation is not full anonymity. If you look at Zcash and if you look at Monero, they do full anonymity, but we have a way that the sender and receiver can see, or whether the receiver can see who sent them the money. So you have the travel rule. You can apply the travel rule, and a user that is making transfer can explain where the money came from. And if the money came from someone that they cannot explain, they can, of course, send it back. So that's one of the technologies that we've worked on. We have that natively in our blockchain. And for the assets that we were designing, we have the ability to audit. So there's an auditor role that can observe. And the auditor you need, because in a regulated asset, you need to have certain, they need to do certain operations like clawbacks or whatever. So there are a couple of permissioned rules that an asset needs to have. Also adding people to allow list and that sort of stuff with their KYC. And so that is also designed for. This happened on the L1. The EVM extension to our architecture, which we call Dusk EVM, has a very different model. So this didn't work there. We call this Zedger, this system that I described before, which is for the tokenization, the native issuance of assets. And we've built an equivalent version for Ethereum chains that is, let's say, less privacy preserving, but still hides the balances, and that's what we call hedging.
That's, I mean, in a way, privacy is pretty important, not only because we're used to privacy in the just regular financial world. We're not even thinking that something like a transaction, like you mentioned, could be seen by anyone. And of course, there's like pseudonymity. So of course, we don't know who's sending assets to another person, but it can be possible to identify. So it's really important to think about those things. Yeah, even when, maybe you and me would be transacting, but even more, or even more in this case, just because we are talking about businesses that are used to having privacy. So in both instances, when an individual works and basically just uses crypto, they need to have privacy. And at the same time, when it comes to businesses, they also definitely would want to have privacy embedded in whatever systems they're using. That totally makes sense. And I know that you were one of the first ones that were looking into this and also working on this for a really long time. So even looking into, what the European Union is looking into and some of the solutions there, when we talk about ADAS wallets and others, it seems that the zero knowledge proof is really becoming one of the things that is not a taboo anymore. We're discussing about it. There's implementations that are being built with different applications. We heard, what was it, a few months ago, that even Google is now implemented zero knowledge. So it's really something that is becoming almost a standard. And I think it's a really good thing that this is happening.
Yeah, indeed. And even sort of these technologies in a little bit more primitive form have been around for a while in finance as well. For example, the way that credit card payments are done with tokens follows a similar pattern. It's a little bit different technology, but it's a sort of derivative almost from it. It's really interesting.
We covered a lot of things. We covered what Dusk is, what was your evolution, how and who do you want to partner with, how does the future look like? You have done a lot of pivoting, adjusting, but also building a lot of products. You have this, as you mentioned, Zedger, you have Dusk Pay, we're talking about the EVM compatibility. How do you see Dusk evolving in the future? And first, directly as your project, but also, do you see now with collaborating with so many projects a future on tokenization in Europe? And I'm sure you will say yes because you're working on that. But really, what would be your prediction for the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years in this topic?
Yeah, well, I must say I'm a bit skeptical about some of the tokenization things happening in the space, right? Because just to be a bit cynical, because a lot of it is just wrapping, right, without any meaningful extra on top of it. So it's just price exposure. We see a lot of projects now taking, for example, a stock, wrapping it in an X variant or whatever, and then they provide price exposure, which is nice. If you want, as a crypto investor, want to have extra investment options, but it's not really a way to attract the current TradFi liquidity into crypto. It's actually the opposite. It's attracting crypto liquidity into TradFi products. So it's the TradFi parties that are mostly benefiting from this. What I hope, and I hope to see more, is that we get the opposite going, right? That we can offer, for example, yield-bearing products that currently exist in TradFi, bring them on-chain, and then have people that currently sit in TradFi move over to crypto, put their liquidity in crypto chains, and from there we can start going towards the DLT TSS type solutions, where we start getting rid of many of the intermediaries, like clearing houses, like settlement systems, and we do that on a shared infrastructure where the liquidity is shared between everyone in the network, as if everyone has a bank account with the central bank, right? If you have that, then you can have almost instant settlement between institutional parties, but you would have this for individuals, which is quite crazy to think about. the error rate would drop massively, the costs would drop massively, and the amount of speed at which money can flow around into different products. Because instead of having product offerings, for example, in the Netherlands with a bank like Rabobank or ING or whatever party, you would have them all next to each other, and you could directly interchange the products. And you could go as far as, like with the DLT-TSS, drop the cost for issuance, and then also smaller companies can start getting funded on a same shared level as that you can buy Google stocks, for example. And just the fallout effect of this on economic growth will be so massive in the long term that this is inevitable. If the regulators are not going to block this off, and the technology actually does what it promises, and I think we are at the pathway of proving that, then the potential growth for at least 2% GDP or more is just there. I think even the central bank in the UK at some point said if they introduce a CBDC, that's 2-3% GDP growth potential. Well, what do you think will happen if you can fund startups much easier than now and get rid of 10% error rate on stocks and bonds, right, on settlement? It's going to be massive.
That's some very positive prediction. I like that. I think that the Commission is really taking this seriously. We have discussed in our previous episode as well that there's been a consultation for the Savings and Investment Union that has been focused specifically on tokenization, which is, I think, very nice because anyone could contribute. Anyone in the space was working on this. We have as well, and I know there was some discussion with your team on this topic as well, and I do believe that there is this, wish for listening what the industry has to say, and at the same time also kind of providing this framework that would be really beneficial for everyone. That is really something that I think Europe needs. Also, a more unified financial market, easier way to fund startups and companies, and this is what we need to, work together towards. You're building products. We're making sure that there's feedback when there's consultation regarding, new potential regulations, revisions, and this has been a very, very nice discussion. I don't know, do you want to add anything else before we end this talk? But at least for me, it's been very nice because we can go a little bit more into detail also and talking about a product, which we, when we talk about regulation and lawyers, we usually go into the details of what the regulation is saying and in which direction it's going. But I think it's really nice to have this very, closed approach and understand how products work and how the new products and the new companies are working together towards providing solutions that are also, from a technical point of view, that are kind of aligned with the regulation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have much to add, and it was really nice that you invited me. It was really a pleasure. And I think if you guys want to know more about the products in the future, we can always do a separate follow-up if you like, but let's do that when there is something actual to touch and play with, and then we can dive a bit deeper if you guys like. Because like regulations and technology, those are always two almost feel as separate things, right? Like two completely different worlds, but we try to merge these two and try to make products out of it, right? And in the end, we're doing it for the companies that need funding and for the people themselves to play with, to get the advantages of the technology, right? So it's really really nice to work on this sort of stuff, especially with, like I said, the sort of benefits that we can get from this in the future. It's really really nice to work on.
Congratulations on everything you have done, and good luck with everything you will do in the future. Thank you for taking the time. It is hopefully the end of the week for you as well. And
let's see.
Okay. For anyone that is listening to us, thank you for being with us. The recording will be online. You can always reach out to us, or you can reach out to Hein and the Dusk team anytime. And hopefully we'll have a new episode in the future when we're going to discuss about the developments that will happen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.